Yo, what's up, guys?
Hey. Oh, hi,
Hey,
YouTube.
and YouTube, and Josh. Hello. Hello, everybody.
Everybody, hi. Man, I hope. Hold on, let me see. I can't. I think he's following something else. I'm not gonna put in what I'm following because I think I want Johnny to be surprised because I think this is more for him. I think I got him on something.
Oh, nice.
hmm I have two. If he found this as well, great. I have a backup as always, but I think this one. I think I found a good doozy for him. Oh, and the bracket. Yes, I will fill that out on the way to Austin tomorrow.
I mean, we're gonna be talking about what we're picking tonight.
Perfect. Oh, I see. Pick a double-digit seed to win a game. Too sweet. Okay, let's do this. Oh,
I mean, you don't. Yeah, I mean, you don't necessarily have to have the whole thing filled out, but
yes, I'll get you. I'll get you something good. Oh yeah, I got it. Yeah, obviously we got to pick. I should have picked the other white guy name.
I know, right?
That was on me. That was on me. I had a 50-50 chance and I blew it.
Yeah. All right. I may need to text Johnny to remind him that we're doing this. He may have forgotten.
He's still distraught.
Josh, would you do me a favor and check? Oh, hang on.
Mm.
Would you do me a favor and check and see if you can see our live stream? I think I accidentally listed it as unlisted.
Oh, got you. Yep, checking right now. Let's go to my lives. Oh yeah, I don't. There is no live marker.
All right. I will make it public. Now it should pop up here in the next couple seconds.
Oh,
Hopefully.
there it is. Got it.
Okay, cool. Glad I caught that. Yeah, I was just zipping through the settings and forgot to hit it public. I think it
No,
defaults
you're
to
good.
unlisted, which isn't a bad thing necessarily, but
That's not bad. Yeah, I was gonna say as a test.
so interesting.
Oh, perfect.
Interesting news. North Carolina is basically not participating in the NIT. They were one of the first 4 teams out, and they've said they're not participating. So there's all kinds of
Oh man,
conversation about that. I mean,
because they're the first preseason, or I guess first week whatever,
Yeah.
number 1 overall to miss it.
right.
But I mean, at the same time, like their season wasn't I mean, by their standards, yes, it was a failure. But I feel like it wasn't. Was it this season or last season that made Coach K sad?
Last season, yeah, they made
It was last season,
K,
okay.
Coach K real sad.
Yeah. So I'm like, overall, they've been okay. But I know based on, I mean, I can't say this as an Ohio State fan. I'm just happy to see sometimes we lose more closely than normal. But
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, someone points out that Penn State went to the NIT and won it in 2018. 2 years ago, they were in the NCAA tournament. Obviously, COVID knocked that out. But, like, you can use it as a chance to, improve yourself.
oh, it's always skill development. I mean, especially, I mean, who do they have going out? It might just be a thing where like they have too many seniors going out. They don't want their. Even then, that's on them. But
Yeah.
if they got a bunch of people leaving, they may not think it is as worth it to do developments.
Yeah.
Or next time they could just play better.
Yep. Yep. I mean, the ACC was bad this year, so. We could get a Texas A&M matchup in round 2 though.
A Texas Horned Frogs versus Texas A&M.
Yeah. Yeah, I think Johnny probably just forgot about us.
Or he's drafting his manifesto.
Yeah, one of the two. Yeah.
Hmm. Wait, is that who you have? You don't. Okay. Who's a fun team? Oh, it is Grand Canyon Antelopes. Man. No, I can't. I want to do my trend of picking a school name that just sounds like a guy, but I can't. I don't think I can. I don't think I can pick Howard as much as I want to.
Yeah, but Drake is. I mean, Drake's a 12 seed.
Oh, that's right. Drake's in.
Yeah.
I could pull a real Drake, and just bandwagon on Drake now.
True.
Sorry,
That'd
guys.
be fun. Oh, you're good.
Completely lost track of time.
That might be fun. Trying to think of any other teams that could theoretically. They're punching above their weight class. That's a very common. They're in the upset bracket. So, or like the upset position.
Yeah.
Upset bracket. We talking Purdue?
Now we're talking. Josh is trying to find a team that sounds. I'm
trying to find a Cinderella team.
Yeah.
And I love.
No.
I like my trend of finding the guy like a white guy's name. So I'm like, I can't pick Howard. I don't want to be that bold and pick a 16-1, but I might pick Drake for my Cinderella team.
Got it.
If you need
Cinderella,
you could
meaning
pick
like
Xavier,
one
to go
one win
as well.
Yeah. What are we saying with Cinderella, Josh? Like a really high seed winning like the first round, or are we saying like an 8 seed making a run to the Elite 8 or Final 4? Like what are you?
I want the lowest seed going the farthest because it is the most chaotic. So, like, let's see here. I mean, I could do. Oh, yeah. I got a few options. So I have 2 options. I'm gonna do but we'll get to that in a sec. I like 2 of these. Oh, I like that too. Otherwise, I'm good to go.
I am good. Yes, I'm good.
Okay, I think I'm good as well.
I just finished my first bracket, so we are.
Yeah, me too.
We are good.
All right, and just make sure on the Audacity, make sure it's your Elgato in the input section, so where that mic logo is. That's the one that needs to say Elgato Wave because it was not. Yep. We had all kinds of audio problems last week, so I'm trying to avoid that.
Okay.
All right, check 1, 2, 3. I think I'm good.
Yeah, mine's still there.
Yep, I'm good to go.
Sweet.
All right, I am recording.
Sweet. I will get us started. Welcome to the 5th and Goal podcast. My name is Aaron. I am joined, as always, by my good friends Josh and Johnny back for episode number 102. And it's a good episode because the NCAA Tournament bracket is out. We're here recording early because we're trying to get an episode in right after this bracket comes out. So it's hot off the press for us on a Sunday evening. It's a good time of the year. But before we dive into that, into all the upsets and the seeding and everything else, Josh, what's up, man? How was your week?
I'm doing great, guys. In keeping with season 2, Josh being simply the most smartest. I found a fountain pen.
Oh,
Just found it at the coffee shop I go to normally. Turned it in like you should to the barista and said, "Hey, someone lost this fountain pen. You know, give it. Give it. Put it in the lost and found." Went back a week later. I was like, "Hey, did anyone pick it up?" And they're like, "No, it's yours now." So I now have
nice.
a cool $150 fountain pen. It clicks and everything. I got my old ink out, and I'm now.
You're now
back
better
in
than
business,
everybody.
baby. Now we're just solidifying this. So I've had a great week.
Well,
Oh my gosh.
the real question is, if you write out your bracket in ink with that fountain pen and it does well, then you said it's worth
hold on.
$150. It's about to skyrocket in value if it
I'm
has
plugging
some
my
benefit.
laptop into my computer, into my printer as we speak, and I'm going to print out a bracket and do it that way.
All right. I love it.
Did you hear it? It's ready to go.
Oh, amazing. Jonny, what's up, man?
Not much, doing well. I mean, all the conference tournaments were so much fun, despite not having any bid stealers. It was still fun as always. It's a couple of the best weeks of the entire year.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, yeah, I'm excited to talk about it. My week was relatively good. So we were off last week. I was traveling, and I may have torn my ACL at the end of the travel. We'll tell that story later as I know more details. But anyways, that's kind of everything that's happening. But it doesn't prevent me from sitting in a chair and yelling about sports. So here we are. But no, guys, I'm excited. As you all know, this is one of my favorite times of the year. With conference tournaments, I love those. It was a blast the last couple of weeks. We didn't have bid stealers, but I will say some of the mid-major tournaments were just wild. Like in the Ohio Valley Conference, Southeast Missouri State won 4 games and 4 nights as a 5 seed to claim the first automatic bid. You had teams like Texas Southern, who I believe were either the 7 or 8 seed in the SWAC, who won their tournament. So you're right, not necessarily any bid stealers. I was disappointed to see Dayton lose to VCU,
SWAC,
but there's some chaos in some of the other brackets that were only getting one team in the tournament. We'll have plenty of time to talk about that. But Jonny, we'll start with you because you are, in fact, our resident bracketologist. And as I mentioned in the intro, we are literally less than 2 hours out from the announcement of the tournament field. You texted our group and said you had some words for the committee.
I hope they're good words because I've looked at this bracket at least twice, and my goodness, I could not think of a better pairing up. Like everything looks great. The seating is perfect. No notes. For me, this has been one of the cleanest, least controversial bracketologies we've had in a while.
Yeah, I agree.
Jonny, it feels like sometimes we might disagree on this. So just out of interest of giving you the stage, how do you feel?
Funny you should ask that, Josh.
Oh, great.
Let me first start with one that is more of a pet peeve rather than something I'm furious about. And that is the fact that the committee always pairs up non-power schools against non-power schools. Let me give you an example. San Diego State is a 5 seed. Wonderful. Like we have a Mountain West team that's a top 5 seed. They completely deserved it. The Mountain West is really, really good this year. That's amazing. Who do they give them in the 5-12 matchup? Charleston. Oh, that drives me insane. And listen, I get like 12 seeds typically are like the best mid-major, like real small mid-major conferences, but that drives me a little insane that they do that all the time. Where like the fun of the tournament is that we get to see how far these small schools can go. We get to see like this is the best team that like Charleston has had in like 100 years. And they might not ever have another chance like this to make a deep run. And they pair them up against another small school, like another non-power team. That drives me really nuts when they do this. Another one, Memphis and Florida Atlantic. And listen, I know Memphis is not like some tiny school, kind of like San Diego State, but like, I don't know. That just drives me insane that you gave Memphis and Florida Atlantic pairing up against each other. Like switch them with who's Iowa and Auburn. Switch one of them, man. Switch one of them. It really wouldn't have made a big difference. We all love to see the mid-majors and non-power schools get to play those big, I guess you could say 6 in reality when it comes to basketball, if you include the Big East. So that always drives me a little insane. Every single year, I feel like they always do this where they're like, let us schedule, like VCU and St. Mary's are also playing each other. I hate that. Like, I absolutely despise when they do that. I want to cheer for St. Mary's. I want to cheer for VCU. I get that sometimes that happens as teams win and get knocked out in the tournament. I don't need to see it in the first round. You have so many other options here when you're talking 5 and 12s. You can rearrange. You're doing it specifically because you want to protect your brand names and you want to make sure that they get through as deep into the tournament as possible. You're protecting yourselves by doing that and having a lot of them, good ones, playing each other in the first round. So there's only so many left after that. So the chances of more than one of these mid-majors or smaller schools really making deep runs is very minimal because they're taking each other out in the first round. Like, okay, so here's what I would have loved for them to do more of. Kent State's a 13 playing number 4 Indiana. Amazing. I love it. Number 5 Miami playing 12 Drake. Fantastic. We want those. Those are the upsets. Those are the games. Those are the matchups we love to see. That really kind of frustrates me. One other thing, Penn State, Texas A&M as a 7 and 10 seeds is absolute garbage. They both made their conference tournament title games, and the fact that they have to play each other in the first round is also it's just awful. Like, I don't really have any other words for that. Like, they had no idea what they were doing there. My last rant about how we seeded these teams. The committee treated Alabama like the Anthony Davis Kentucky team. They gave them a cakewalk to the Final Four, a cakewalk. And they even put them with the East region where, like, there's no way Purdue makes the Final Four.
Yeah.
Like, that's the region of chaos. So Alabama has been handed a ticket to the Final Four and probably to the title game. And that should be reserved for, wow, this was the best team all year, and it was unanimous, and we never had any questions about it. That Kentucky team with Anthony Davis lost one game, and it was in Bloomington at the buzzer to a really good Indiana team. I'm still not sure. Like, Alabama's fantastic, don't get me wrong. But Kansas, didn't have Bill Self all week at the Big 12 tournament. And it's like, that didn't matter. And not only that, you handed Kansas UCLA. Like, that was brutal. If anything, I could have still made an argument Kansas was the number 1 overall seed. Instead, you treated them like one of the bottom. And that was just completely incorrect in my estimation. You loaded up UCLA and Kansas and put all the top teams really on the other half and handed Alabama a clear path to the Final Four. And listen, you could have called them the number 1 overall seed. I had them the number 1 overall seed. But you treated them like, oh my gosh, we don't know how this Alabama team's going to lose. They're just so incredible. They're one of the best teams in the last decade. And I just don't see that out of this Alabama team. So that was really frustrating, where it felt like they manipulated the board a lot for the Crimson Tide's favor. So rant over.
Well, I don't necessarily want to rant, but I'm curious who you had as your last 4 teams in compared to what the NCAA selection committee did.
Yeah. So great question. So I got 2 wrong this year. Biggest shock for me. So my last 4 teams in was Boise State, Mississippi State, West Virginia, and Arizona State. Now they all actually made it. My last team out was Pitt. Now Pitt actually slipped into the field. How Pitt got in, though, over Rutgers and over Clemson is beyond me, in my estimation. And Clemson,
especially because they're literally in the same conference.
It made no sense. It made no sense to me. Clemson and Pitt split the season series. Clemson beat NC State 3 times, not once, 3 times. NC State's in the field. NC State is 23-10, 12-8 in conference. Their net is 45. Okay, good net, like solid, right? Clemson is 23-10, 14-6 in conference, so two games better. They're 57th in the net, so they're not as good. Their non-conference schedule wasn't great. But they beat NC State 3 times, and not just beat them. They massacred NC State, especially this last time in the ACC tournament. It's beyond me that you can put NC State in and not Clemson. that doesn't compute to me. I have them both in and Pitt out. I really I don't understand. I just don't understand Pitt really being in the field. I know they were 14-6, and they were my last team out, so I don't have a huge. It's not the end of the world. The biggest shock to me was Nevada getting in. And I had them as in my next 4 out. Their net is a 37, but they looked really, really poor down the stretch. They looked solidly in for me, and I believe they lost like 3 of their last 4, and Boise State beat them handily twice in a row. So at first I really thought like, oh my gosh, are we going to leave Boise State out? So luckily they put them in. Listen, I'm not usually upset about them putting in Mountain West schools though, so I'm not going to be like screaming at the clouds about that. I don't understand. I don't think the committee knew what to do with the ACC being so poor this year. The reality is, Rutgers, you can't blow a 14-point lead to Minnesota. And that game cost them.
Yep.
Arizona State gets in by the skin of their teeth because they hit a buzzer beater against Arizona. And that key win got them just over the hump and got them in. And, at the end of the day, that's how tight this is. That's how tight it is. And North Carolina, if they beat Virginia or if they beat Duke, they're probably in the field as well. I believe the committee had them as the 3rd team out. I had them as my 2nd team out. They win one of those games, they probably slip into the field.
Yeah, and it's an interesting debate to have with the teams that just make the field and the teams that will be playing in Dayton on Tuesday and Wednesday, those last 4 teams in. At the end of the day, unless you're a team like, let's say, for example, Charleston, who has won 30 games this season, would have somehow lost in their conference championship game and would have been left out. I would have some serious beef with that, because if you win 30 games, I don't care where you're from, you should be in the tournament. If you're a team like Rutgers, yeah, I probably like if I was gonna nitpick, I'd say Rutgers probably should be in. Hey, Rutgers, don't lose 14 games. I really don't have a ton of sympathy for you. I know the Big Ten stuff. Don't lose 14 games this season.
Aaron, it just was the Minnesota game though.
Yeah,
you're up 14. Like, you lose just 13 and don't lose to Minnesota, you're in. Like, yeah, I really believe that.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. I'm just saying I don't have a lot of sympathy for them. Like, and yes, you're right. It does sometimes come down to a game that close, or even I think on the NCAA tournament show they were talking about. I think North Carolina had Alabama on the ropes, like in a 4 overtime game. I can't remember if it was North Carolina or some other team, but like you win that game way back in November. That's literally the difference between you making the tournament and not making it potentially, which is just kind of wild. Right. But again, don't lose 14 games. That's my thought there. All right.
No, yeah, for sure. For sure. It's just the ACC was so much worse than they normally are.
Yeah.
That I think the committee just had a really, really difficult time figuring out what to do with that conference. I think you can see that with teams being underseeded and overseeded even throughout the conference as well. And I think while they had an easier time with really no bid stealers this year, as you kind of mentioned, like Kent State won the MAC and Oral Roberts won the Summit League. And so we didn't have to have those debates where somehow the mid-major always loses, even though it's insane because they have like 29 or 30 wins. So I was happy obviously about that. But I thought Nevada was an oversight with how poorly they ended the season. And I thought Clemson was a little egregious to not keep them in, to not put them in. But a lot of people hated Clemson this whole bracketology season. I don't quite understand it. I've watched them and the other bubble teams they've beaten. So I don't know. But there's always 1 or 2 teams that I don't really understand what the committee does. So about par for the course on that one.
Yeah. Well, and I know they don't look at past years as precedents, but the Mountain West has been just terrible in NCAA tournaments in the last few years. So we'll see if that changes this year. They got 3 or 4 teams in. We'll see if that changes. Obviously, San Diego State being a 5 seed. All right, let's actually get into this bracket, though. So here's what we're going to do. We've kind of given that was our bracketology preview, but now we do have the field of 68. So let's do, I'm trying to think how we want to do this. Do we want to talk like upsets? Do we want to go region by region? I'm open to suggestions here.
We can do upsets.
All right.
Let's do upsets.
All right.
Well-
Josh, do you want to kick us off?
Yes, absolutely. I just penned them in.
Oh,
So
amazing.
it's set in ink.
Yes.
So I picked the wrong white guy in my tournament just to
yes.
preempt the picks of the week. Drake ended up beating Bradley, so sorry Bradley, you'll have to there's
NIT for them.
NIT for them. There's always lacrosse season, but but Drake, you know what? Just like Drake in real life, I'm gonna start bandwagoning, and I'm gonna bandwagon on Drake.
Amazing.
I have no reason other than I really like them. I also have Oral Roberts. You got to pick a 5-12.
Good pick.
Yep.
Good pick,
I'm
Josh.
picking Oral Roberts. I'm not
pick.
picking them for good reasons. I'm picking them because it's Devils versus a Christian university, and I got obligations, man. I'm at a seminary, so
Nice. All right, I like it. I like it, Johnny.
Yeah. So I'll give a few, and obviously bracket just came out. Some of these are subject to change, but right now, just first gut instinct picks. I have Oral Roberts over Duke, just like Josh. I think it's a great pick, and since we both think it won't happen. Providence over Kentucky in that 11-6. I also have Kent State over Indiana, winners of the MAC. I think Kent State, they showed a lot of character early in the year, playing a lot of power non-conference. They got to keep the lights on. They're playing all the big boys in football and basketball to just make some money. They're going to be prepared and ready to go. I also have VCU over St. Mary's in the first round. And that's it, actually. That's all I got right now.
All right. Nice. So I don't have the exact stat pulled up because, again, like we've mentioned, we're like 2 hours deep, so I haven't done like the analytics yet of my bracket. But I can tell you that there's been a double-digit seed in the Sweet 16 every year for a good long while, like pretty impressive streak. So part of me searching through this bracket is like, okay, where makes sense for a double-digit seed to make the Sweet 16? And my team coming into it, I talked about them last episode, was Oral Roberts, who did in fact win the Summit League. They swept their conference. And I know you guys have them beating Duke, but I actually like the way Duke's playing. Duke won the ACC championship. They're playing much better. We talked this time like 4 weeks ago that Duke may not even make the tournament. And here they are now as a 5 seed. And you could argue that they were maybe even more deserving of a 4, maybe 3. So
It's a trap, Aaron.
Well, I'm picking Duke, but I'll more on that later on how I like the Duke Blue Devils in this tournament, because I think they actually match up against Purdue pretty well. Spoiler alert. But I've got Charleston beating San Diego State. Charleston has just been so solid this whole year. But guys, I've also got Furman beating Virginia, the 13 over 4. Here's the deal with Virginia, right?
The Paladins.
Do I have that?
They play Virginia
No,
plays this
that's
style
Virginia.
of basketball where they obviously are defense first. I think that goes without saying. And it means that Virginia could quite frankly win this entire tournament. It also means, as we've seen with them losing to UMBC in the first round, they can also lose to any team. They could win the tournament, the entire thing, and I wouldn't be shocked. But if they lose the first round like I'm projecting, I'm also not going to be shocked. Furman also plays they talked about this on the selection show if you watched. They play very intelligent brand of basketball. So I'm taking the Paladins. So that means you've got a 12 versus 13 matchup. And I do like the Cougars of Charleston to advance into the Sweet 16. I've got Alabama eventually cleaning them up. But that's probably my biggest upset. I've got a couple else sprinkled in here there. As you guys have mentioned, probably subject to change. But I'm rolling with Charleston, the 12 seed in the Sweet 16.
Aaron, I actually have Oral Roberts all the way to Sweet 16. I have them beating Tennessee too.
Okay, nice.
I have them beating Tennessee too. This is an experienced team that's been to the Sweet 16 before. Tennessee just lost their starting point guard. I think that's a big deal. Duke also, I just, and this is how I see it, and I could be dead wrong. How often do we fall into the trap of watching a team make a brilliant run through their conference tournament only to implode on arrival in the NCAA tournament.
see
And I have
Iowa
a hard time
last year.
explaining. Yeah, I have a hard time explaining how and why. See Iowa State or any non-Kansas winner of the Big 12 tournament in recent years as well. It just happens, man. Unless you are UConn, it usually those magical runs to your conference tournament actually don't help. It's almost better to make it to like the semifinals and go ahead and lose. So I have Oral Roberts as one of my teams. There's a lot of other interesting ones. If we're talking about like a region that I think is just going to implode, it's the East. Yeah. And I think that's very obvious. I think it's extremely obvious just because there's a lot of good teams in that region and not really any great that I see there. They really loaded it up for Purdue. And there's just a lot of very streaky teams in that region. I wouldn't be surprised if you could name 6 teams there. And if you're like, they're in the Final Four, I'd probably like, yeah, sure. Like, yep. You're not crazy. There's probably 6 teams there that I'd buy it. I'd take that. So it's fascinating. That region is probably where I'm the most interested in.
Yeah, well, let's just roll through regions then, and we'll kind of give our final 4 picks here. And I can start. Jonny, I feel the exact same way about the East, or excuse me, about the South, because that's where Alabama is. Alabama, the overall number 1 seed. Again, not necessarily consensus. I think there was arguments for Kansas, for Alabama, maybe for Houston, because they ended up with the 2nd overall seed. But anyways, I'm with you guys in the South. I've got Alabama kind of rolling through, but I'll highlight some things. I already mentioned my Charleston-Furman fun little matchup in round 2. I do really like Creighton. I don't know if I like them well enough to beat Arizona in the Sweet 16. Right now, I don't. That's one thing I could potentially switch. I've got Alabama 1, Arizona 2, the top 2 seeds advancing out of the South, but I may switch Creighton over Arizona. That's kind of TBD. They had some injuries in the middle of the season that set them back, but in recent months, they've been coming on a little bit more strong, and I think overall the Big East is actually set for a pretty good tournament. So I'll move on to the East, which, as you guys said, is chaos. Despite the chaos, I've actually got a 1, 2, 3, and 5 seed in my Sweet 16, but let me break it down. I've got Purdue advancing. Florida Atlantic, I feel bad for them, and Memphis. Like, those 2 teams, like absolutely. You mentioned it, that's a tough draw because both these teams are red hot. Heck, Florida Atlantic shoots the 3 well enough that they could maybe upset Purdue. I don't see it because Purdue did a pretty good job of keeping Penn State, a team that loves to shoot the 3, off the 3-point line today in the Big Ten Championship. So I've got Purdue in the Sweet 16. But as I mentioned, I really like the Duke Blue Devils. I've got them beating Oral Roberts in what could be a classic game. I feel horrible for Oral Roberts because that is just a brutal draw. I was going to have them over just about any team they were going to face in this tournament, and then they ended up with Duke. You mentioned the problems with Tennessee, some injuries there. I've got Duke over Tennessee. I've got Duke over Purdue. And I've got Duke matching up with Marquette in my Elite 8. I think Marquette's been an incredible story. I believe they were picked 8th preseason in the Big East. They not only won the Big East regular season title, they won the Big East tournament. And I like their draw against potentially Michigan State, a Kansas State, Kentucky. I like that draw a lot. I like them getting past Duke. I like Marquette getting all the way to the Final Four out of the East. Out of the Midwest, I have Houston doing Houston things. Now, an important note there, Houston, Marcus Sasser was injured. He did not play in their conference championship game. Houston lost that game to Memphis. So that's something to track. But I'd have no concerns of Houston beating Iowa or Auburn. Of course, now that I've said that out loud, congratulations, Iowa or Auburn. But I like Houston. I've got Houston over Miami. I really have chalk in that kind of top half of the bracket. Really, I've got chalk everywhere. My only significant upset is I've got Penn State over Texas A&M for a game, and then I've got Texas cleaning them up. I've got Texas and Houston, a fun little Texas battle, a battle to reach Houston, ironically, and I've got Texas, the Longhorns, reaching the Final Four and facing the defending champions and fellow conference foe, Kansas. I've got Kansas out of the West. I have them beating Arkansas, UConn. I do have Gonzaga in the Elite 8. It's an interesting year. Gonzaga was down this year, but they played really well down the stretch. They do have some veterans on their team like Drew Timme who have been there, have tournament experience, and for once, they're not a 1 seed. They don't have that spotlight on them. And I think that might help them fly under the radar a little bit. A very intriguing potential rematch of that epic Gonzaga UCLA game from a couple years ago. I've got that in my Sweet 16, and I've got Gonzaga winning. So I've got Kansas, Gonzaga, Elite Eight. I've got Kansas winning to reach the Final Four. So that means my Final Four teams are Alabama, Marquette, Texas, and Kansas. And from there, I unfortunately have to say that I've got Alabama beating Marquette. I've got Kansas beating Texas to reach the national championship yet again. But I've got Alabama winning the whole thing, 69-63 of final score, the Crimson Tide, which is gross, but that's what
gross.
I've got. Yep.
Gross. Ew. Okay, I'll go real quick. South. I already mentioned it before. I really don't see how Alabama doesn't get out of this region. So let me highlight some other things. I do have Creighton upsetting Baylor and Arizona to get to the Elite Eight, Aaron. So you mentioned that previously. I have Creighton getting there. I think Creighton is one of the few teams that could give Alabama problems with their length and size. They're one of the few teams in that region that can actually match that. However, their defense is a struggle. And Alabama is never out of a game. They've been down and trailing so often. I think that bites them in the butt against the elite teams of this tournament, but it doesn't until they reach the Final Four. So I do have Alabama there. I have them beating West Virginia and then San Diego State before they beat Creighton to get to the Final Four. In the East, I can tell you right now, the East is going to be all over the board when you look at experts and what they're picking. Yeah. So I'm so different than Aaron here, but I think that's honestly going to be par for the course. As you guys look at where everybody's at on the East, it'll probably determine who wins your bracket challenge groups. I have Memphis not only beating Florida Atlantic, which I think will be a brutally difficult game. So I'm being very risky here by going with Memphis. I think if Memphis gets Purdue, they beat them. And they do beat Purdue. Wow. And they get Oral Roberts in the Sweet 16. So they beat Oral Roberts. And Memphis goes to the Final Four, beating Kansas State, who takes out Providence before. Michigan State beats Marquette in that second round game. So my Sweet 16 in that region, just for clarity's sake, is Memphis, the 8 seed, against Oral Roberts, the 12, Kansas State, the 3, against Michigan State, the 7. Again, I told you I think it's going to be chaos. It will be chaos. And so that Elite 8 will be the 8 seed Memphis and the 3 seed Kansas State. On to the Midwest. Houston. I'm really concerned about Sasser. That will determine potentially what I do with Houston. So this region is probably the one that's most up in the air as far as me altering my picks. I do have Kent State getting that early takedown of Indiana. I think that's critical to shaping this region if that happens. I do have Miami then finding their way through to the Sweet 16 then, and they take out Houston. Assuming Sasser is not healthy, I really like Wong, their guard there, and the NCAA tournament's all about free throws and guard play. So if you have a difficult time picking between two teams, look at the free throw percentage of their starters and look at what guards they have. It's all about guards, not big men. That's why I have Purdue losing in the second round. I have Xavier squeaking by Iowa State. I really have a difficult time picking that, but it doesn't matter because I have Texas winning, and I have Texas beating Miami in that Elite 8 to get to the Final Four. On to the West. I think the West is the death region. I mean, they loaded up this region. You have Gonzaga as a 3, UCLA as a 2, Kansas. They did Kansas no favors as the 1, giving them UConn as a 4. I mean, it's just a brutal region. So anyway, I have VCU getting that early upset against St. Mary's, but that's the only main upset I think I have in this region early on. Kansas is walking their way to the Elite 8. Beating Arkansas. They beat UConn there in that Sweet 16. Still a really solid year for UConn. Aaron, what you said about Gonzaga, I really feel strong about Gonzaga in this tournament. I think it's a raw deal where they got placed, though, with UCLA and Kansas. Despite the injuries to UCLA, I really respect Mick Cronin. I think UCLA is going to find a way. I mean, even in that Arizona game, it took some fluky things at the end for them to lose in that Pac-12 tournament. title game. And again, winning your conference title in the tournament really doesn't have a lot of bearing on how you do in the NCAA tournament. So I think it can be helpful. It can also almost be hurtful. So moving on. So that would mean, here we go. Final four is Alabama out of the South. Out of the East is Memphis. They will play each other. And then I have the Midwest. I have Texas. And in the West, I have UCLA. So that's a 1 seed and 8 and 2 twos. When you're formulating your Final Four, usually you have to have at least one seed. So make sure you do that.
Yep.
Then, in my opinion, the other two have to be within the top 4 seeds. So you need to have 1, and then 2 that are in 2, 3, or 4 seed. And then you can pick one that's more of your Cinderella fun team. So for me, that's Memphis as an 8. Usually it's not anything lower than an 8 unless we're talking about like a VCU, like fun, wild time. Anyway, enough about that. Alabama beats Memphis. They put that to rest. They make it to the finals, and I have UCLA beating Texas. I struggle with that one a little bit. I think it's just an outstanding game. I will just be looking so forward to that matchup if that happens with Marcus Carr and Jaquez and Tiger. It's just, that would be such a good game. I love that. But I have UCLA outlasting Texas in that, and I have UCLA beating Alabama in the title game.
Hey, how dare you?
They take the championship. They finally get back to the top of the mountain. I would feel really good for Mick Cronin and this veteran UCLA team if they're able to cut down the nets.
I promise you, my pen clicked off. That is the exact as far as my championship. That's exactly what I have. UCLA over Alabama. I am so sorry. I can share screenshots. Like
you couldn't have wrote that fast, Josh. So I believe you.
Look at it. Yes, I know. I'm like, well, I could have written it. Well, no, I can write it so fast because I'm not thinking. So here's mine. Here's what I normally.
So that means, Aaron, I feel even better about my bracket. Josh did that without thinking.
True.
I think I aced it.
Here's how I do things. I had to translate and actually no. Who did I read this week? I read about 300 pages out of this thick old book, book right here, and so my brain is fried. So I genuinely have no basketball thoughts in my head. However, I always, in the back of my head, no joke, have Aaron's video from last year in my head of pick upsets early on, and then by the time you're at Elite Eight, Final Four, you pick chalk. Yeah. It is exciting for the first two. It's exciting for the first 2 rounds, and then it is chalk all the way through. And so based on just going off of almost like a law of averages, I'm like, well, a seed like this probably won't go so far, yada yada. I have Alabama as my South. I have Kansas State beating Oral Roberts in the Elite Eight to get to the Final Four.
Okay.
Yes. My riskiest upset is I do have Vermont over Marquette. Because I think it'd be funny.
Oh my goodness!
Yes,
the Catamounts.
The Catamounts. Yes.
Wow.
So I don't have them going much farther. I have Michigan State taking them out. But like, I'm like, I gotta pick one that's so insane that if
one will happen.
One has to happen.
One will happen.
I have UCLA over Kansas to get UCLA into the Final Four, and then I have Houston over Texas.
Nice.
And so, yeah.
That game, if that happens, will be a lot of fun.
That'll be a lot of fun. We'll see.
Yeah.
Because I also, that's not I really wanted to put Drake farther, but this again, we got to go back to, you can't have too many fun teams going far. You have to pick one storyline that is fun and go with that one. So mine is Oral Roberts.
Oh no, Josh! Tell the people you have all the fun you want. You pick 5 double-digit seeds in the Elite Eight.
I did. I had also Alabama over Creighton. I did a lot of fun ones. I really did a lot of fun ones. We'll see. Hey, but you know what? We're gonna try. This is the opposite of AI. This is like traditional. Like I have my fancy bottle of ink right here. That's just.
Did you pick them out of a hat, Josh?
No, I didn't pick them out of a hat. I used this fancy ink bottle.
Wow.
And I picked for prestige. I was gonna let a machine decide because I was debating whether or not just to like type everything into the Bing bot and see if it came up with a different name for itself. In the meantime, I'm like, you know what? I don't want Sydney or whatever that bot thinks it is to pick my things. I want to do it the old fashioned way. I almost thought about getting a feather and like a little a feather and like an ink dye. Just
Yeah. Well, Josh, all I can
the way
say
the
is
founding
if this,
fathers, the
if
way the
this
founding
bracket's
fathers
your
did their
best
merch
ever,
Madness brackets.
if this is your best bracket ever, then you are forever destined to carry around this bottle of ink and that pen
Oh yeah,
for 1 week of the year only.
Yes. Submit picks. So yeah, I went ahead and this is the one that I picked on paper is the exact one that I have uploaded to our, well, as soon as we're done recording, the one I will have uploaded to our Fifth and Goal Sports ESPN Tourney Challenge. So we will have a live reading of whether or not this was the right decision.
Yes. Well, Josh, thanks for bringing that up because, yes, that group is available for you, the listener, as well. If you would like to join the group, feel free. Again, on ESPN, all you have to search in groups is Fifth and Goal Sports, and that should pop up. In fact, we've already had several people who were in the group last year have already filled out their brackets and are locked and ready to go. I guess we're calling it Golden Bracket Year 3. I've actually won it the last 2 years, so someone please try and stop me because I'm trying my best to actually give away the Golden Bracket trophy. You know you won it. So that's happening. The winner of the group gets the Golden Bracket. That's all I'm going to say. But I will say this, new game times just dropped. Any interest in that? Like as of like 30 minutes ago?
Ooh, hit me
now
with it.
I don't need to deep dive because again, by the time this episode comes out, you all will know what has happened. But the very first game, not including the first 4, is Maryland, West Virginia. And 8-9 is our 12:15 Eastern tip. That's Jim Nance and Bill Rafter and Grant Hill and Tracy Wolfson on that call. So you love that crew. What a way to get the tournament started. The last game of the night on Thursday is, well, let me say this. Penn State, Texas A&M, 7:10 is 9:55 p.m. Oral Roberts Duke is at 7:10 p.m. on CBS. So that's got Kevin Harlan. That's exciting. So that's a good game time for a game like that. San Diego State, College of Charleston, 3:10 on Thursday. On Friday, I'm just kind of highlighting some potential upset games. You've got VCU St. Mary's at 2 o'clock on Friday. You've got Iona UConn, which I'm not saying that's going to be an upset, but I feel like not a lot of people. I think a lot of people are just taking UConn automatically, which means that maybe Iona's got a good shot there. 4:30 there. Drake, our beloved Bulldogs, take the court at 7:25 p.m. Eastern time on Friday. So, and Kent State, we have to wait until 10 o'clock Eastern time. Well, probably later because all these games end up getting pushed back on Friday before we get to watch our beloved Golden Flashes. But anyways, there's just a quick summary of some game times. So, yeah. Josh,
Very
I don't
good.
know. Josh, who did you have winning the whole thing?
I have UCLA.
UCLA. Okay, that's right. Yeah, I knew that because you guys have the same thing. All right.
We
Well,
got
good.
this, Josh.
We got it. Here we go. And I just submitted mine.
Amazing. Well, Josh, Johnny, good luck to you both. Well, this is also a quick brainstorming session while I'm thinking about it. So BingBot, we talked about this, is a bot, but most of these bots only have data that is like current of 2021. So the
no.
bots don't actually
Oh,
know
no.
about the current bracket. So we'll have. I want BingBot to be part of our tournament bracket group, but we may have to do some creative thinking on
I don't know, Aaron.
how to do
that. Sounds better. That sounds better that
Give
it
me a
doesn't
second.
have
Hold on.
information based on
I'm
the
gonna
last
see.
year.
I'm gonna check and see how recent Chat GPT is.
I want to say it's the same, but
Is it the same?
But either way-
well, no, because Chat doesn't have right now, and again because we saw with how rogue
yeah.
BingBot went, they're not connecting these bad boys to the internet technically.
Right.
As far as their databases are concerned, they're connected to physical, like any book that's been digitized.
Right.
But you know what? I'm just gonna see. I'll make a bracket. I'll have Chat GPT try and give me something, even if I have to feed it the teams manually. I'll see if I
Right.
can get something else.
Yeah.
Also, be on the lookout for a mascot bracket.
Mm.
Oh,
That
and a
will be
mascot
done.
bracket. Yes.
That will be done here shortly.
Yeah.
But
Another
there's
popular one
research
is
at times that is involved.
well,
so
yes, a lot of
rush
intensive
apart.
YouTube nature videos are watched to determine who really would win a fight between a kangaroo and a who knows what else.
and a walrus. I don't know which schools we're talking about there, but they exist.
Yeah.
There's a walrus school somewhere.
Somewhere. Somewhere there is. And also a famous alumni bracket. That's always a classic. So that might make its way out into the deep realms of the internet somewhere. So, yeah. All right. Well, best of luck to you guys. Best of luck to our audience. May the best bracket win. And of course, the best bracket can win the Golden Bracket Challenge. All right. Obviously, most of this week was filled up with college basketball news, but we had some pretty significant NFL news in terms of the draft. We had talked about this over the last couple weeks. We have some mock drafts available on our Instagram account if you want to go check those out. But we've kind of been projecting, hey, look, Chicago is going to trade out of the number 1 spot. They don't need a quarterback. They need quite literally everything else. And this week they actually pulled the trigger and they traded with the Carolina Panthers. Now, the Carolina Panthers, also in need of a quarterback, were previously sitting at number 9. And they've traded up to get that number 1 pick. And they gave Chicago their 9th pick, the 61st pick, as well as a 2024 first round, 2025 second round, and wide receiver DJ Moore. Jonny, I'll start with you since you're kind of our resident expert on mock draft. Look, we knew this trade was going to happen at some point. We weren't sure the team. We'd kind of been projecting Indianapolis, but this wasn't a huge surprise. But what do you think about Chicago? Do you like what they got in return? Do you like this for Carolina? What are your thoughts on this?
I think it's a really good deal, partially because there's a chance that Carolina's not good next year also.
Yeah.
So that first round pick next year could be extremely valuable, a la the Lions getting the Rams pick this year. So I will say I would give like the Bears a solid like B plus on this trade, which I think is a win. Part of me thought that there was the potential perhaps for more, but I think the disagreement on there being one top quarterback actually devalues the pick a bit, where teams might not even be certain which of those top 4 quarterbacks that they want. And so this might sound ridiculous, but I think some teams are just kind of more in wait and see mode. Carolina has a still relatively new owner, one of the richest in the league, that's impulsive and wants to win right now. He's not waiting. I don't even mind this trade if you're Carolina, if you truly have a quarterback in mind that you really, really want. I think them saying that, oh, maybe we'll trade this pick, I think that's not really real. I think you always, these teams always play coy around the draft.
Yeah.
You can't really actually believe a lot of the stuff that they say. They have a quarterback or 2, I would say at this point, that they're trying to decide which one they want. If I'm the Bears, I'm also thrilled as a neutral wanting Justin Fields to succeed, because I think this will almost force the Bears to take an offensive lineman, because that will most likely be the best player available at that spot. In my opinion, that's probably Peter Skoronski from Northwestern, their tackle. Now, he's not the unanimous best offensive lineman in the pick. Paris Johnson Jr. out of Ohio State could also be there at that pick. So my hope is that the Bears go offensive tackle there with that pick. It would be the right pick at that spot. You wouldn't be over selecting like you would have at number 1. Now you got additional draft assets as well. You really don't need a wide receiver now with getting DJ Moore. You already traded for Claypool and you have Mooney. That's not anything insane, but it's a solid receiving core, especially when you add in Cole Kmet at tight end and you have your weapons at running back. Do you want to draft a wide receiver later in the draft? Sure, absolutely. I always say that you should draft probably 1 wide receiver every draft. Probably get another running back if you want to, but they got to fix that offensive line. They got to go all in on Justin Fields because you're not picking quarterback this draft. Go all in, man. Push all your chips to the table, fix that offensive line, and see if he's got it and he pops year 3, as we've seen a lot of other young quarterbacks do. I think it's actually kind of a win-win for both teams as long as Carolina actually knows who they want and it's not Anthony Richardson or Will Levis.
Oh my gosh. Can you imagine if they draft Will Levis first?
It seems like people are cooling off on Will, so I doubt. I would be stunned if it's Will.
I feel bad because I feel like he's probably genuinely, from all accounts, other than putting mayonnaise in his coffee, seems like a genuinely good dude. I feel so bad for him because like we're very critical kind of him, but it's not like him personally. It's where all these NFL executives have him ranked in the draft. Right. So yes, I hope our audience that hears us probably killing Will Levis, and to a certain extent Anthony Richardson as well. Like, don't hear us criticizing them. Like, by all means, I hope they succeed. But by all means,
Oh,
do
yeah.
I want to be right in the fact that, hey, I actually used my eyeballs and sat down and watched some Kentucky and Florida football this year and didn't just look at someone's hand measurement or how far or how fast someone can throw a football. Will Levis was measured at 56 miles an hour throwing the football. That's going to be a darn fast interception is what that means to me. Like, could we stop to a certain extent with some of these metrics? Like, use your eyeballs. I know he's got tons of potential, but the man could not win a starting job at Penn State. Like, that's
Aaron,
a
did you see
huge
that
red
tweet?
flag to me.
Did you see that tweet that Will Levis would have been the #1 overall pick if he went to Alabama or Ohio State? Did you see that tweet on Twitter this week? And I'm like, my friend, he went to Penn State. He couldn't beat out Sean Clifford for the job.
Yeah.
If he went to Alabama or Ohio State, you know what would have happened? He would have transferred to Kentucky.
Yeah.
What happened is exactly what would have happened.
Yeah.
Will seems, like you said, Will seems like a nice guy.
Yeah.
Like,
I
no-
hope he
no
proves
offense.
I hope he proves everybody wrong.
Yes,
But I'm gonna
it's just
for
these
now. I've got
NFL
my
execs
doubts.
come in.
Yeah.
The NFL execs come in that really haven't watched college football, that haven't been paying attention, that cherry pick the highlight reels, that do all the measurements at the combine, that say they kill the interviews. And that's wonderful. Great for these guys. I'm happy that they're really good dudes. They nailed the interviews and they have giant hands and verticals and long jumps. That's great. That sounds like me trying to find an Olympian for the US more than me finding a quarterback.
Yeah.
What's your decision making on the field? Not hypothetically. What I saw. And yes, Aaron, I hope, and for both of their sakes, I don't want them to go to Carolina either, because that's not where they'll succeed.
No.
They'll have to start right away, and they're not ready. They're not ready for that. Their only path to succeeding is sitting for a year. It just has to be that way.
Yeah. Like, it's not going to happen, but if one of those two fell into the laps of like Tampa Bay, who can start, someone ran, I don't know, like Kyle Trask. I don't care. Start him and let you. We can. We'll obviously have this discussion more in a month. I will say Anthony Richardson ran a 4.4. Oh my gosh, that dude can fly. He's got to be able to throw a football, but oh my goodness. Oof. So
he just needs to find that accuracy, man. Like, Aaron, if you're asking who has the highest potential, it is Anthony Richardson. It is.
Yeah.
But if you throw him into the wolves immediately, you will break him.
Yeah.
You will break him. He has to sit. He needs to go to Seattle and sit behind a professional like Geno Smith and Pete Carroll, who won't rush him into the game and will be patient and give him reps and experience. And then he might be brilliant. But if he gets thrown into the wolves at like Carolina or Houston, they could ruin his career before it gets started. And that's more of an indictment on those franchises than it is on Anthony Richardson.
Yeah, far more quarterbacks are ruined than are built. I think that's stood the test of time. All right, we will talk about that certainly more. Once we're wrapped up with this NCAA tournament, we love the draft. You guys do too, I know. Appreciate all the comments on our mock drafts that we have posted. Obviously, we'll have another one because we need to make 3.0. That's coming out next. I know that's going to be post-Combine, post-Carolina Panthers trade, so look for that. All right, it is time for our picks of the week, and of course, we have to go back a couple weeks since we took off last week. But if you remember, we picked conference tournaments, as Josh mentioned, the wrong pretentious guy named team won the Missouri Valley. So it was the Drake Bulldogs winning it instead of the Bradley Braves. So Josh, sorry about that. The Liberty Flames also could not get the job done in the Atlantic Sun. It was Kennesaw State. I believe it's their first ever NCAA tournament. So good for the Owls.
Good job, guys.
The 1 seed there. So they took care of business, even despite almost losing to the Queens Royals in the quarterfinals. Anyways, shout out to Atlantic Sun for being just hectic. Anyways, but guys, I picked Oral Roberts and they won. So I somehow emerged as the only point getter this week. So I've got 58 points. Jonny has 51. Josh has 50. So we'll go through this quickly because we've already mentioned some upsets that we have in our March Madness brackets. But to get points this week, we are going to pick a double-digit seed that will win a game, not including the first four, in the NCAA tournament, and I'm going with the Charleston Cougars. I do have them in my Sweet 16, so brownie points if they make it that far. Obviously, we'll be through the first two rounds next time we talk to you guys, but I'm taking the Cougars.
I have Oral Roberts making it to the Sweet 16. As previously mentioned, I think they're going to get that upset over Duke. I could be way wrong, but why not swing for the fences and beating Tennessee without their point guard? So 2 giant upsets. I think it would be a blast, but this is not a normal mid-major team. They have just so much experience from that team that beat Ohio State and made it to the Sweet 16 a few years ago, that they're still put together. And this team, as Aaron mentioned, swept their entire conference for the season.
Yeah.
They are focused. They are ready. It is a rough draw for a Duke team that just ran through the ACC tournament, but I don't think the ACC is very good. And so I have Oral Roberts going on through.
The Golden Eagles have a 7'5" guy that shoots threes, by the way.
Yeah, Josh, and for everybody who hasn't watched Oral Roberts, that is an inch taller than Zach Edey on Purdue. So, Josh, I can't wait for yours. I love your Josh is the best. So
yeah, we should give you a point just for picking this.
Let's go to Josh.
Guys, it's one of those things where like I wrote it down and then I realized what I wrote, and I went, "Oh no!" But we're sticking with it
because it's an ink.
Because it's an ink. I only crossed that one, and it was the one that probably won't happen anyway. Yeah, I'm picking Vermont over Marquette. Just the one. I'm not gonna be bold and say they're making Sweet 16 or anything, but I'd have my maple syrup boys do the most. You got to pick one for fun. You got to pick one 15-2 upset. Don't unless you got like insider information. Don't pick a 16-1. But for fun, you got to pick a 15-2. They don't always happen, but they can. A lot more likely, and they're so fun. So, yeah, Marquette, I'm sorry. Y'all were caught sleeping. You all will be caught sleeping.
Josh knows the script writer, so he's writing down Vermont. I see how it is.
I
Josh, if Vermont beats Marquette, because I've got Marquette in my Final Four, yeah. I will send you a Vermont Catamounts basketball T-shirt.
Yes,
I'll do it. If Vermont beats Marquette, write it down. I'm sending you a T-shirt. So there we go.
In fairness, Aaron,
Vermont, that's in Columbus. I gotta have one. Like,
yeah.
The Golden Eagles won't have a chance against the Catamounts when it comes to mascot bracket. Sorry.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah,
that's no research required. Like that's just basic knowledge of the food chain pyramid, whatever you want to call it.
Large cat against bird. Sorry.
Yeah. Oh, Josh, I'm so glad you're following this. That takes us to what we're following. Josh, this is an emergency that I think you need to be talking about right now. So I think you should kick us off.
Yeah.
Guys,
what on earth?
You got a globe.
Josh, hold on.
Toss it right in the... Yeah, go for it.
I'm currently reading Journey to the Center of the Earth, so I'm very interested.
You're reading the documentary, sir. You're reading nonfiction, finally. Guys, welcome to... This isn't Chess Heads, but you know what? It may as well be. Welcome to Chess Heads, where anything's a sport. Screw you. Guys, we got a new ocean that just dropped. And when I say just dropped, will drop in about 30 million years. It's okay.
Oh.
Let me explain. A new ocean is being formed in Africa because the East African Rift. That is I believe a tectonic plate that separates the coastal countries, such as Kenya and Tanzania. Jonny knows where those are. The rest of you, trust me, it's in Africa. It's currently moving. They're moving apart from each other at a rate of about 7 millimeters per year.
Whoa.
So that's
faster than Virginia's offense moves.
It's faster. Hit 'em. So that means, and I don't believe it's been named yet, because again, it's going to happen in a little bit. So
we've got some time, is what you're telling me.
We got some time. What I'm saying is, it's currently happening. They're saying it's happening relatively consistently. I mean, countries like, Zambia, Uganda, they're going to get their own coastlines soon, and I think that's kind of fun.
Beachfront property.
Beachfront property, exactly. So buy property now, and it's in In 330 million years, it's going to really go up in value. So, like, we get an
Long-term play,
opportunity
man.
now.
Money
What we get
moves
to do
only.
now, what we get to do now is we get to name this ocean. This is something we get to do right now on the podcast.
Oh, nice.
I've not come up with any names. This was breaking news, and I wanted you guys to figure this out too. So we don't have to do this immediately, but over the next, this is what season 2 podcast will be doing, is we will come up with the official name for this ocean. Or tonight, however soon you guys want to move. So I think that's really cool.
Yeah.
Is this going to be like that boat naming competition where the
We're not going to be
winner
named.
ends up being Mr.
It's not
Ocean
going to be. It's
McOcean
not going to be.
Face?
It's not going to be Mr. Big Wet. Like, that's just not how it's going to happen.
Oh, Josh, that's exactly what's going on.
Look, I think the sad reality is that it's just going to be called the African Ocean.
It's probably going to be called.
If
the
we're being
African
honest,
Ocean.
but we have
Well, the
higher
thing is, it's
standards
not-
here
we
for a
have
name
higher
on this
standards.
show.
Yes.
Now, what those
It's gonna get
standards
put
are,
on-
I'm still trying to figure out because I have no good names off the top of my head. But we'll figure this out.
Josh, I don't know. I kind of like your idea. I think we just go with that. Was right off the top of your head, right off the.
Hey guys.
I think that's perfect.
We have the Atlantic Ocean, the Pacific Ocean, the Indian Ocean, the Arctic Ocean. We have Mr. Wet, and
See, it's great. Let's do it.
Man.
Perfect.
all right, there it is.
Moving on.
All right.
Perfect.
Good job, everyone.
If you have ideas for names,
Yeah.
they won't be better
Please
than
do.
Mr. Wet.
Please do. Please have better names.
Please
than
send
that.
them our way.
That's going to get taken weird in some context.
Oh,
Please
my
give me a better
God.
name.
Oh my.
So, but you can preemptively light all of your globes and maps on fire because they don't mean
Yeah.
anything anymore.
Oh my.
The next
Okay,
30 million
well,
years will be a little bit nebulous, but you'll figure it out.
You'll figure it out. You'll be fine.
Mine is maybe more random, maybe less random. It's mostly football related. So I was following this journey on Twitter this week. So T. Higgins on one of my favorite teams, a team near and dear to
yeah.
my heart, the Cincinnati Bengals. One, he's not going anywhere. Sorry, everybody. Find your own wide receiver. Great wide receiver for the Cincinnati Bengals. Probably going to get paid this offseason or maybe next season. Who knows? Anyway, he bought a jellyfish. So we're like, oh, that's kind of random, but I don't know. You're an NFL player. You got random money. You buy random things, right? So, he bought a jellyfish. He went onto Twitter asking for quick help. He bought a jellyfish and he did not know how to set the tank up. So he already has this jellyfish.
I'm sorry.
And it's like, y'all, how do I set this tank up? I have no idea. The Bengals literally start tweeting out, basically asking for people to help T. Higgins set up this tank so that he can save his jellyfish. It's amazing. And all the random trolls are funny too, especially of his own team. But then at the end, this is quite sad. Lots of people offering him to help, professional people. Probably someone from SeaWorld ends up helping him because these are NFL players are ridiculous. But then eventually T. Higgins did tweet out that the jellyfish did not make it in time. The tank was set up, but tragically, no fish to swim in it.
Oh,
So,
Man.
I mean, so this is over like a whole day, a whole like 2 days. It's a 2-day
Man.
span. This man took longer than 2 days to set up a tank for the jellyfish. The jellyfish never stood a chance.
Man.
Also, I don't know if we talked about this a couple weeks ago, but rip to the Big Ten pinwheel logo for
Yeah.
the tournament.
Oh, yeah.
The new logo was stupid. It's terrible. It was Kevin. It was Warren's parting gift. It is dumb. We could have added UCLA's blue and USC's red like we did for Maryland and Nebraska and Rutgers. This is garbage. Bring
The
me
issue-
back my pinwheel.
And here's the issue. If you've seen, like, I saw it on the court. And on court, it was nasty. Have you seen the logo? The logo itself makes sense. Because they followed, there's a specific design trend you have to do when you're doing implied volume. You have to, the outside has to be lighter and the inside has to be darker. And that's like some sort of shadow thing. It creates depth. I didn't take art classes. I have art friends. They didn't do that. It was just like 2 different shades of blue, or it was like black and blue and it was the wrong thing. And it was the worst. And above, like if you looked directly above, you're like, I can kind of see this. Any other angle, undiscernible. It's a basketball, I suppose. Big Ten, you're about to gain some really prestige, like blue blood basketball teams, you gotta redesign it again.
Yeah.
You said UCLA, USC money, redo it.
Yeah, if UCLA wins the championship, like you guys think, are we claiming it for the Big Ten?
Oh, absolutely.
Oh yeah, it's a Big Ten one. Yeah, we got Bush Light here ready to go,
round.
just in case, because it's
The second round could have a couple of all Big Ten matchups this year. Yeah.
Yep.
So I believe USC. Yeah. Just some. What is USC playing Michigan State? Is that a first round matchup? So I don't know why they put two Big Ten teams together in the first round.
I don't know why you
that's
didn't
kinda
talk
weird.
about that. That's super frustrating for them.
It's very unprofessional of them.
It is.
They should.
It is.
Yeah.
They already played each other, exactly.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Well, you know what's unprofessional is North Carolina declining a bid to the NIT.
Here it is. This is also a side note, like straight to jail segment.
Yes, that's exactly what I was going to say. I wasn't planning on this, but I remembered it when you guys said unprofessional. Yeah, straight to jail, North Carolina, for not even participating in the NIT, because the NIT is next to the NCAA tournament, is just an incredible tournament all by itself that often goes unsung. But that selection show is happening at 10 p.m. Eastern time tonight, so I need us all to stop talking so I can go enjoy that.
Yeah, you have just under an hour. Yeah, we gotta get this going.
Yeah, really big deal. Anyways, that's not what I'm following. I'm following two other things, but I'll make them quick. One is there's been a bit of a rivalry, let's say, between the United States and Great Britain since roughly 1776, or a little bit before that for you that know history.
Let's go.
Now, we had an addition to that rivalry on the pitch this year in a game that was tied 0-0. So we didn't really learn anything. Like, there was a debate to be settled. Which country's better, whether it's called soccer or football. Quite frankly, I think that's the better argument here. But we didn't really determine anything because it was tied 0-0. Now, a lot of people, and I would agree with them, said that kind of advantage US, right? Like, Great Britain couldn't even beat the U.S. at, in theory, their own sport, right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, we had round 2 last night.
Yes, we did.
The World Baseball Classic, Pool C, which contains both the United States and Great Britain, they faced off in both of their opening games, and I'm happy to say that the United States took home a 6-2 victory. So, Great Britain, it's called soccer. That was the tiebreaker. We tied you at your sport, and we beat you at our sport. So it's been decided. It's called soccer. Good for the U.S. They play Mexico tonight, I believe. So that continues. The U.S. is playing in, I believe, Phoenix. So loaded roster for the U.S. So the World Baseball Classic continuing. It's been a really good tournament so far.
You see this tee? Yeah, take that, Britain. Oh, darn it. This is a podcast. Okay, so what I just did was I held up a thing of tea. I have tea, loose leaf tea, and I just kind of dumped it all over the place.
It's excellent
for the
podcast
bits.
material.
Oh,
It's a
well,
great,
Excellent.
for the
excellent,
content.
great job. I forgot that we were a podcast.
I'm glad everybody heard that tea getting dumped.
Hopefully that shows up on the mic. We'll see.
Yeah, I'm sure it will. Also, real quick, and I'll end with a less exciting thing. So, obviously, I'm a Detroit Lions fan. We had a better than usual season, and one of the reasons why the Lions missed the playoffs is because their defense was very bad. So, clearly, that's a focus of this offseason. It's going to be a focus of the NFL draft. But he's not a free agent, but he's basically was going to be traded. A key defensive player was Jalen Ramsey, who was on the Rams. And so there was a thought that, hey, maybe the Lions will trade for this guy. Well, instead, the Dolphins traded for him, and all they had to do to get Jalen Ramsey was offer a 2023 third-round pick and tight end Hunter Long. That's all it took. So I think the Lions are probably going to look at themselves and say, maybe we should have actually offered. And I'm not sure what they did or did not do. But I wonder if at the end of the day, they're going to look at themselves in the mirror and say, we probably should have offered a little bit more. And I'm sure a lot of other teams are going to fall into that exact category too. I know he's a little bit older, but he's still one of the better defensive players out there. And for a lineup that just desperately needs bodies on the defensive end that are capable, now seeing what his worth was apparently on the open market feels like a miss for the Lions. So not great. I think they're going to probably kill it in the draft. They've got 2 picks in the top 18. I'm anticipating both being defensive players, even though I know you're going to see some mock drafts with the Lions hot take pick Will Levis or Anthony Richardson. I really hope it doesn't happen. It is not a need. All you got to do, it's really simple, Lions. Draft 2 defensive players, re-sign Jamal Williams, and the rest will play itself out. And hey, Aaron Rodgers might be on the New York Jets, so you may not even have to worry about him anymore. We'll figure that out. Maybe we'll have news next week. All right, guys, I think that wraps us up. So New Ocean just dropped. It's soccer, not football. T. Higgins, RIP and peace to your jellyfish and to the Big Ten pinwheel. I hope you learned a lot this episode. Oh yeah, and make sure you fill out your bracket, put it on our ESPN group, and you can win that golden bracket. And of course, as always, we'll be talking about it on social media. So follow us on Instagram, on Twitter, we're on TikTok, we're on YouTube, where you can see Josh pour out the tea. If you ever care to join one of our podcast live streams, you're welcome to do so as well. But most importantly, thank you for listening. We appreciate your support. We will see you guys, or probably you'll hear us next week. Have a good one.
$102, right?
Yeah. Yep.
102.
YouTube, thanks for hanging out tonight.